In 1955, a Campbell's home economist named Dorcas Riley stirred together mushroom soup, green beans, and fried onions. She had just invented the most famous dinner in America. Back then, the best recipes weren't in cookbooks. They were printed on the back of the box. Number 4 was made by pouring a bottle of salad dressing over chicken. Number 16 went from wartime delicacy to national punchline. Hit that subscribe button. Let's count down the 25 forgotten back-of-the-box dinners every mother knew. Number 25, Ritz Mock Apple Pie. This is the recipe that proved American mothers could fool their own families. There were no apples in it. None. During the lean years, when fresh fruit was expensive or out of season, your grandmother could pull off a golden, cinnamon-spiced pie using nothing but Ritz crackers, sugar, water, cream of tartar, and lemon. She broke about 36 crackers into a pie shell, poured over a hot syrup boiled with sugar and cream of tartar, dusted it with cinnamon, dotted it with butter, and baked it under a lattice crust. The crackers softened and swelled until the texture landed somewhere unnervingly close to stewed apples. The lemon and cream of tartar gave it that tart apple bite. A box of Ritz cost about 35 cents and made a whole pie when the fruit bowl was empty. Nabisco printed the recipe right on the box for decades. People swore they couldn't tell the difference, and the ones who could kept quiet because a pie was a PIE. Number 24, Chex Party Mix. In 1952, Ralston Purina put a recipe on the side of the Chex box that would show up at every party in America for the next 40 years. Your mom melted a stick of butter in a big roasting pan, stirred in Worcestershire sauce, garlic salt, and onion salt, then folded in corn Chex, rice Chex, wheat Chex, a bag of pretzels, and whatever nuts were in the cupboard. Then it went into a low oven for an hour, stirred every 15 minutes so the butter and seasoning coated every piece. The house filled with that toasty, savory Worcestershire smell that meant company was coming. It came out crunchy, salty, a little greasy in the best possible way. A batch cost a couple of dollars and filled 3 bowls. It sat on card tables during football games and church socials and New Year's Eve. Store-bought bags exist now for $4, but they never taste like the ones baked slow in your mother's oven. Number 23, Rice Krispies Treats. 2 Kellogg's employees, Mildred Day and Melita Jensen, created these in 1939 to raise money for a Campfire Girls fundraiser, and by the 1960s, the recipe on the back of the blue box was in every kitchen in the country. Your mom melted a bag of marshmallows into a big pot of butter over low heat, stirred until it went smooth and glossy, then dumped in 6 cups of Rice Krispies and folded fast before it set. She pressed the sticky mass into a buttered pan with waxed paper so it wouldn't stick to her hands, let it cool, and cut it into squares. That was it. 3 ingredients, 10 minutes, no oven. The whole batch cost under $1 and made 2 dozen. Kids heard that pot scraping and came running. Bake sales ran on these. Lunch boxes carried them. Nothing that simple has ever made that many children that happy. Number 22, Kellogg's Cornflake Oven-Fried Chicken. Long before anybody had an air fryer, the back of the cornflakes box taught American mothers how to get crispy chicken without standing over a spitting skillet of hot lard. Your mom crushed a few cups of cornflakes into coarse crumbs inside a paper bag, dipped chicken pieces in milk or beaten egg, then shook them in the bag until every piece was coated. She laid them on a greased sheet pan and baked them in a hot oven for about an hour. The cornflakes toasted into a shattering golden crust that crackled when you bit through it, and the meat underneath stayed juicy. No grease burns, no splattered stove, no gallon of oil to strain and save. A box of cornflakes cost about $1, and breaded 2 whole chickens. This was Sunday dinner for families who couldn't afford to fry, and honestly, it was better for you than what came out of the pan. Number 21. Underwood deviled ham. That little can wrapped in white paper with the red devil on it was invented in 1868, making it the oldest trademarked food in America. And by the 1960s, it was the fastest lunch a mother could put on the table. Your mom pulled the paper off, opened the can of finely ground, spiced ham, and spread it thick on white bread. Sometimes she mixed it with a spoonful of mayonnaise, a little pickle relish, and a squeeze of mustard to stretch one can across 4 sandwiches. Sometimes she piped it into celery sticks or hollowed out tomatoes for a fancy lunch when the neighbors came. A can cost around 30 cents and lasted a couple of meals. It was salty, rich, and shelf-stable, sitting in the pantry for months, waiting for a day when there was no time to cook. Deli meat replaced it, and a whole flavor most Americans grew up on quietly disappeared. Number 20. Jiffy corn casserole. The little blue and white box of Jiffy corn muffin mix cost a dime, and the recipe that made it legendary wasn't even printed on the box at first. Mothers passed it hand to hand until it became gospel. Your mom stirred 1 box of Jiffy mix into a can of whole kernel corn, a can of creamed corn, a stick of melted butter, a cup of sour cream, and 2 eggs, poured the whole thing into a baking dish, and baked it until the top turned golden and the center set like a soft, sweet spoon bread. It came out somewhere between cornbread and pudding, buttery and rich, crisp at the edges and custardy in the middle. It fed a crowd for almost nothing and reheated beautifully. It showed up at every potluck, every holiday table, every church supper across the Midwest and South. People still make it, but half of them have no idea it started with a 10-cent box. Number 19. Caro Pecan Pie. The pecan pie America thinks of as ancient Southern tradition was actually printed on the back of a corn syrup bottle. Caro popularized the recipe in the 1930s, and by the 1960s it was the pie every mother could make with her eyes closed. Your mom beat 3 eggs, stirred in a cup of Caro syrup, a cup of sugar, a little melted butter, and a splash of vanilla, then poured it over a pile of pecans in an unbaked shell. In the oven, the filling set into a glossy, translucent custard, while the pecans floated up and toasted on top. It was sweet enough to make your teeth ache and rich enough that a thin slice was plenty. A bottle of Caro cost around 30 cents and made several pies. This was the pie that appeared at Thanksgiving when the pumpkin ran out. The one nobody realized came straight off the label. Number 18. Velveeta cheese sauce. Kraft's Velveeta melted like nothing else on earth, and the back of that heavy foil-wrapped brick taught a generation how to make a cheese sauce that never broke, never got grainy, never seized up. Your mom cubed the Velveeta, dropped it in a saucepan with a little milk, and stirred over low heat until it flowed into a smooth, orange, glossy sauce in about 3 minutes. She poured it over macaroni, over broccoli, over toast, over anything that needed rescuing. Mixed with a can of tomatoes and green chilies, it became the dip that ran every card game and football Sunday in the country. A 2-pound brick cost under $1 and lasted for weeks without refrigeration worries. Real cheese curdled and split. Velveeta never did because it was engineered not to. Food snobs sneer at it now, but they've never gotten a scratch sauce that forgiving on a Tuesday night with 3 kids yelling. Number 17. Baker's German's Sweet Chocolate Cake. Here's a name almost everybody gets wrong. It has nothing to do with Germany. It was named for Sam German, who developed a sweet baking chocolate for bakers in 1852. The famous cake came from a Texas homemaker who sent it to a Dallas newspaper in 1957. General Foods printed it on the box, and sales of the chocolate exploded overnight. Your mom melted a bar of German's chocolate, folded it into a rich batter, and baked 3 thin layers. But the real magic was the frosting, evaporated milk, egg yolks, sugar, and butter cooked until thick, then loaded with toasted pecans and shredded coconut. She spread it between the layers and over the top, never the sides, letting that gooey caramel coconut crown drip down. It was the birthday cake, the anniversary cake, the show-off cake. A bar cost around 20 cents, and one recipe on a wrapper turned into an American classic overnight. Number 16, Spam with pineapple. During the war, Spam kept soldiers and families alive, and Hormel printed dozens of recipes to make the canned meat feel like a real dinner. The most famous scored the block of Spam in a diamond pattern, studded it with whole cloves, laid pineapple rings and maraschino cherries on top, brushed it with a brown sugar and mustard glaze, and baked it until the edges caramelized and the glaze went sticky and dark. Sliced and served with rice or potatoes, it looked exactly like a miniature holiday ham. And for a lot of families that couldn't afford the real thing, that was the whole point. A can cost about 40 cents and fed 4. It was salty, sweet, and rich, and children who didn't know any better thought it was fancy. Spam became a national joke somewhere along the way, but on a lean night in 1962, that glazed loaf was dignity on a platter. Quick thing before we keep going, if you want to make these channel recipes at home, you can grab our cookbook bundles right on our website. Pause to scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. Now let's get back to it. First pattern break. Here's what almost nobody realizes about these recipes. They weren't gifts. Every single one was a sales pitch. Campbell's, Kellogg's, Nestle, Kraft. They hired home economists and photographers and ran entire test kitchens for one reason: to get you to buy more of their product. The recipe on the back of the box was an advertisement disguised as help. And it worked better than any advertisement ever has. Because when your mother made green bean casserole, she wasn't thinking about Campbell's. She was thinking about Thanksgiving, about her kids, about family. The company took a can of soup and wired it directly into your memories. That's the genius nobody talks about. These corporations didn't just sell food. They rewrote what home tasted like, and they did it 8 lines at a time on the side of a box. Number 15, Bisquick dumplings. General Mills put Bisquick on shelves in 1931, and by the 1960s, the recipes on the yellow box had quietly become the backbone of weeknight cooking. The one mothers relied on most was dumplings. Your mom stirred Bisquick with a little milk into a soft, sticky dough, then dropped spoonfuls right on top of a bubbling pot of chicken and broth, covered it, and let the steam do everything. 10 minutes uncovered, 10 minutes with the lid on, and those blobs of dough puffed up into tender, fluffy dumplings that soaked in the broth from below. No rolling, no cutting, no measuring flour and baking powder separately. A box of Bisquick cost around 40 cents and made dumplings, biscuits, pancakes, and coffee cake all week. The same box taught mothers to make impossible pie, where the mix sank to form its own crust while it baked. One product, 100 dinners, all printed right there on the box. Number 14, Minute Rice skillet dinners. When Minute Rice hit shelves promising a hot dinner in 5 minutes, it changed what a tired mother could pull off after a long day. The back of the box was full of one-skillet meals built for speed. Your mom browned a pound of ground beef with an onion, stirred in a can of tomatoes, a little water, and seasoning, then dumped in the Minute Rice, covered the pan, and killed the heat. 5 minutes later, the rice had drunk up all the liquid and swelled soft, and dinner was done in one pan with nothing to drain. She made Spanish rice, chicken and rice, beef and rice, same method, different can. A box cost around 30 cents and stretched a small amount of meat into a full meal. This was survival cooking for the modern mother, the woman who worked all day and still had to feed 5 people by 6 o'clock. 5 minutes, 1 skillet, everybody fed. Number 13, Eagle Brand Magic Lemon Pie. Sweetened condensed milk was invented to survive without refrigeration, but Eagle Brand's real trick was the pie on the back of the can that required no baking at all. Your mom stirred a can of that thick, sweet condensed milk with the juice of a couple of lemons and some egg yolks, and something almost magic happened. The acid in the lemon thickened the milk right there in the bowl, no cooking needed. She poured it into a graham cracker crust, topped it with meringue or whipped cream, and chilled it. That was the whole pie. It set up firm, tart, and creamy, tasting like far more work than it took. A can cost around 25 cents and made a pie that looked like it came from a bakery window. The same can made magic cookie bars, fudge, and caramel. One label, a dozen desserts, and not one of them needed you to turn on the oven in July. Number 12, Hershey's Perfectly Chocolate Cake. The chocolate cake most American families grew up on came straight off the Hershey's cocoa can. Your mom whisked together flour, sugar, and Hershey's cocoa, added eggs, milk, oil, and vanilla, then stirred in a cup of boiling water at the very end. That last step scared first-timers. The batter turned thin as soup, but that's exactly what made the cake so moist and deep and tender. She poured it into 2 round pans and baked it into layers dark enough to look expensive. The frosting came off the same can. Butter, cocoa, powdered sugar, and milk beaten into a silky fudge. A can of Hershey's cocoa cost around 40 cents and made cake after cake after cake. This was the birthday cake in a million houses, the one made from a can that cost less than the candles. People pay for boxed mixes now, never knowing the better cake was free on the label the whole time. Number 11, Philadelphia no-bake cheesecake. Real cheesecake meant a water bath, a springform pan, and a prayer that it wouldn't crack. The back of the Philadelphia cream cheese box offered a shortcut so good that mothers stopped bothering with the real thing. Your mom beat softened cream cheese with sugar and vanilla until smooth, folded in whipped topping or whipped cream, and spooned it into a graham cracker crust. Then it just chilled in the icebox for a few hours until it set into something cool, tangy, and cloud-light. No oven, no cracking, no fear. She spooned cherry pie filling over the top, and it looked like a diner dessert. A couple of blocks of Philadelphia cost under 60 cents and made a cheesecake that fed the whole family. In the summer, when nobody wanted to heat the kitchen, this was the dessert that saved dinner parties. It wasn't the dense, baked kind, but it was creamy and it was easy, and easy won. Number 10, Jell-O molded salad. When the refrigerator became standard in American homes, Jell-O put a recipe on every box that turned dinner into a spectacle. Your mom dissolved a box of lime or lemon Jell-O in hot water, let it cool to syrup, then folded in shredded cabbage, grated carrot, crushed pineapple, chopped celery, and sometimes cottage cheese or even shrimp. She poured it into a fluted ring mold and chilled it until firm. Getting it out was an art. A quick dip in warm water, a plate on top, a flip, and a prayer. When it slid free onto a bed of lettuce, wobbling and jewel bright, it was the centerpiece of the buffet. A box of Jell-O cost a dime. People think savory jelly salads are bizarre now, but in 1963, a shimmering molded salad meant your mother had a modern kitchen and knew how to use it. It was sophistication you could jiggle. Second pattern break. Here's the part food companies really didn't want you thinking about. These recipes were designed to make you feel like a good cook while quietly making you a loyal customer. A woman in 1962 who made Toll House cookies felt like she'd baked something from scratch. And she had, except every single ingredient of the part that mattered came from one company's bag, and the recipe existed to sell that bag. Kraft, General Mills, Nestle, Campbell's, they figured out that the most powerful advertising in the world wasn't a jingle on the radio. It was a mother's own hands making something her children would remember forever. They turned pride into profit. And the cruelest part? It was genuinely useful. These recipes really did feed families for pennies. The convenience was real, but so was the dependence, and by the time we could afford to cook differently, most of us had forgotten how our grandmothers did it before the box told them how. Number 9. Carnation famous fudge. Fudge used to be terrifying. You needed a candy thermometer, a marble slab, and the patience to beat it at exactly the right moment, or it turned to sand. Then the back of the evaporated milk can changed everything. Your mom heated carnation evaporated milk with sugar and butter, boiled it for a few minutes, then poured it over chocolate chips and a jar of marshmallow cream and stirred until it went thick and glossy. No thermometer, no failure, no gritty texture. She spread it in a buttered pan, let it set, and cut it into perfect squares that shone. A can of carnation cost around 15 cents and made a whole slab of fudge that never once let her down. This was the Christmas fudge, the school fundraiser fudge, the fudge wrapped in waxed paper and handed to the mailman. The marshmallow cream was the secret. It kept the fudge smooth and forgiving, so even a nervous cook got it right every single time. Number 8. Quaker Oats prize-winning meatloaf. The meatloaf most Americans grew up on had a secret binder, and it was printed right on the Quaker Oats box. Your mom mixed 1.5 pounds of ground beef with a beaten egg, chopped onion, a can of tomato sauce, salt and pepper, and here's the trick, 3/4 of a cup of dry oats instead of breadcrumbs. The oats soaked up the juices as it baked, holding the loaf together so it sliced clean instead of crumbling, while keeping the inside moist for days. She pressed it into a loaf pan, smeared ketchup across the top, and baked it for an hour until the kitchen smelled like Wednesday. A canister of oats cost around 25 cents and stretched a little meat into a dinner that fed 6 with leftovers for sandwiches. Cheaper than breadcrumbs, better texture, and hiding in plain sight on a cereal box the whole time. Modern meatloaf comes out dry and dense because we forgot the oats. Number 7. Lipton California Dip. In 1954, someone in Los Angeles mixed a packet of Lipton onion soup mix into a pint of sour cream, and within a decade it was the most served dip in America. The recipe was so popular that Lipton eventually printed it right on the box. 1 envelope of dehydrated onion soup, 1 carton of sour cream, stir, chill for an hour so the dried onions soften and the flavors bloom. That was the entire recipe. Your mom made it for every party, set it out with a bag of Lay's potato chips, and watched it vanish first. It was savory, oniony, tangy, and it took 30 seconds. A packet cost around 20 cents. This one dip probably sold more onion soup mix than anyone at Lipton ever dreamed, because after a while, nobody bought the mix for soup at all. They bought it for the dip. It defined what a 1960s cocktail party tasted like, and it still shows up at reunions today. Number 6. Campbell's Cream of Mushroom Chicken and Rice. The back of the Campbell's Cream of Mushroom can held the single most useful recipe in American home cooking. Your mom laid raw chicken pieces in a baking dish, scattered uncooked rice underneath, poured a can of cream of mushroom soup mixed with a can of water over everything, sprinkled it with a packet of onion soup mix, covered it tight with foil, and baked it for an hour and a half. She didn't touch it again. The rice cooked in the soupy liquid, the chicken went fall apart tender, and the whole thing came out creamy and rich with zero effort. One dish, no browning, no stirring, no watching. A can of soup that cost around 12 cents. This was the recipe that got exhausted mothers through the week, the one written on an index card in every recipe box in the country. It was the ancestor of 1,000 casseroles, and it all started with one gray can and 8 lines of directions. Third, pattern break. Here's something worth sitting with. These recipes weren't just cheap and easy. They were how a whole generation of women held their families together while the world changed underneath them. In the 1960s, more mothers than ever were working, and there was still dinner to get on the table at 6 with no help and no money to spare. The back of the box wasn't laziness, it was a lifeline. A woman could come home dead tired, dump a can of soup over chicken and rice, slide it in the oven, and go help with homework while it cooked itself. She could make magic lemon pie without turning on the oven in August. She could feed 6 people on 1 pound of meat because Quaker Oats told her how. These recipes gave her back time. Time for her kids. Time to breathe. Time to be more than a cook. That's what we really threw away when we forgot them. Number 5. Campbell's Tuna Noodle Casserole. No recipe on this list fed more Tuesday nights than tuna noodle casserole, and it came straight off the cream of mushroom can. Your mom boiled a bag of egg noodles, drained them, and stirred in a can of tuna, a can of cream of mushroom soup, a splash of milk, and a handful of frozen peas. She dumped it all in a baking dish, crushed potato chips or crackers over the top, and baked it until it bubbled at the edges and the topping browned. That crunchy, salty crust over the creamy noodles was the whole appeal, and children who wouldn't touch fish ate 2 helpings. A can of tuna cost around 30 cents, and the whole casserole fed a family for under $1 with leftovers. It was cheap, filling, and made almost entirely from the pantry. Every American who grew up between 1955 and 1985 knows exactly what this tastes like, and most of them haven't made it in 30 years. Number 4. French dressing dumped chicken. This is the dinner that sounds like a mistake and turned out to be genius. Sometime in the 1960s, the recipe started appearing on bottles and soup boxes alike. Take chicken pieces, pour a bottle of wishbone French or Russian dressing over them, dump in a packet of Lipton onion soup mix and a jar of apricot preserves, stir, and bake. That was the entire recipe. No browning, no sauce making, no skill required. In the oven, the sugar in the dressing and the preserves caramelized into a sticky, sweet, and sour glaze, while the onion soup mix gave it savory depth, and the chicken came out glossy, tender, and glistening. Your mom served it over rice to catch the sauce. A bottle of dressing and a jar of preserves cost about $1 together and fed the whole table. It looked like she'd spent all afternoon on it. She'd spent 4 minutes and let the oven do the rest. This was the fancy company dinner hiding behind 3 grocery items. Number 3. Lipton onion soup. Meatloaf. If California dip was the party version, this was the dinner version, and it might be the most made meatloaf in American history. Your mom mixed 2 pounds of ground beef with a packet of Lipton onion soup mix, 3/4 of a cup of water, a couple of eggs, and some breadcrumbs, worked it just enough to combine, and pressed it into a loaf pan. The onion soup mix did everything. It seasoned the whole loaf perfectly, no measuring of salt or chopping of onions, just tear open a packet and go. It baked up moist and savory with a deep onion flavor all the way through. A packet cost around 20 cents and turned cheap ground beef into a dinner that smelled like home the second it hit the oven. Served with mashed potatoes and the pan drippings poured over, this was the meatloaf. It required nothing your mother did not already have and forgave every mistake a tired cook could make. Number 2. Nestle Toll House Cookies. In 1938, Ruth Wakefield chopped a bar of Nestle chocolate into her cookie dough at the Toll House Inn, expecting it to melt and spread. It didn't. It held its shape in little pockets of chocolate, and the most famous cookie in the world was born. Nestle bought the rights, put the recipe on the back of every bag of chocolate morsels, and never took it off. Your mom creamed butter with white and brown sugar, beat in eggs and vanilla, stirred in flour and baking soda, then folded in a whole bag of chocolate chips and maybe some walnuts. She dropped spoonfuls on a sheet and baked them until the edges went golden and the centers stayed soft. A bag of morsels cost around 40 cents. The smell alone brought the whole house to the kitchen. This is the cookie every American childhood is built on, and the recipe has been sitting on the back of that yellow bag, unchanged, for over 80 years. Number 1. Campbell's Green Bean Casserole. In 1955, Dorcas Riley and her team in the Campbell's test kitchen were asked to invent a quick, cheap dish using two things nearly every family had on hand: green beans and cream of mushroom soup. What she wrote down became the most famous recipe in American history. Your mom mixed a can of cream of mushroom soup with a splash of milk, stirred in canned or frozen green beans, dumped in a can of French's fried onions, and baked it until it bubbled, saving a handful of onions to scatter on chat for the last few minutes so they crisped up golden. That was it. Creamy, savory, with that crunchy onion crown. A can of soup cost 12 cents, and the whole dish fed a table. It still appears on more than 20 million Thanksgiving tables every single year, and most of the people eating it have no idea it was written by a home economist to sell soup. One recipe, one can, the most American dinner ever invented, and it came off the back of a box. Here's my challenge. Make one of these this week. Just one. The tuna noodle casserole, the onion soup meatloaf, the magic lemon pie, the chicken and rice that cooks itself. Then come back and tell me if your mother was just making do or if she actually knew something we've forgotten. Drop the one you're going to try in the comments. I want to know if the green bean casserole gets more love than the Toll House cookies, because these weren't just recipes on a box. They were how our mothers fed us, and somebody spent millions making sure we'd remember the brand and forget how easy it was.